Today we have with us the most amazing Dr. Gary Salyer. Dr. Gary is a transformational relationship mentor, and for the last decade, Dr. Salyer, I'm butchering your name, has been in private practice offering singles and couples heart-centered transformation so they can rewrite the rules for love in their brains and create a love that lasts. He is the author of the groundbreaking book, Safe to Love Again: How to Release the Pain of Past Relationships and Create the Love You Deserve. Thank you for being here.
Thank
Welcome.
you, Natalia. It's an honor being here with you. I had a wonderful talk with you before we started.
Thank you. It's my honor. I'm delighted to have you. You're such an amazing man. And I love that you have behind you, you have a picture with the cover of your book.
I do indeed. I do.
I love it.
Like John Gray, they usually have it somewhere behind them.
How long ago did you write this book?
Well, let's see. It published in 2019.
Okay.
And and the thinking and research goes back about 8 years before that. And it took me a whole year to write it. And then another year to edit it down and get it ready for publication.
Wow, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Where I am from, Argentina, we said that to live a purposeful life, you have to have a child, plant a tree, and write a book. Have you ever heard about that?
I didn't realize the book was in there. I heard about the child in the tree, right?
Yes.
And
Third
then
one.
you don't reverse them.
Well, in any shape or form, I don't know which one
Right.
goes first, but I grew up hearing that, and I think it's so amazing because it's very difficult to write a book. And tell us a little bit, how did you end up being a transformational relationship mentor? You could have chosen to be anything you wanted to be in this life. And I find it so interesting that you chose this particular line of work to make an impact.
Well, this is a calling, and a lot of callings come out of the best callings come out of a life that has some challenges, maybe even some failures. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. And even by 7, I was noticing at parties where everybody was drunk how mean my uncles were being to my 2 favorite aunts, you know. And I remember thinking, gosh, why can't people be more loving? Why is this thing so hard? And then I decided, when I looked at all the divorces, and I said, that's never going to happen to me. I'm going to be really, really different, right? And even my mom, when I was 17, comes up to me. She's watching a soap opera, and I'm making fun of these soap operas because they're so jaded, right? And you're going to find out they're just like this. And I remember the defiant teenager saying, then you can shoot me right now because this ain't going to be my life, But so I went to college, and after getting a degree in psychology and marriage and family, my senior year, a professor gives me this big hairy test and pulls me into his office, my favorite psychology professor, and tells me all the results of this personality test. And then as I'm walking out the door, says, oh, by the way, you have a 90% chance of having a divorce. Oh my God, So I go an extra year to get that marriage and family.
Right.
To study just married and think I've got it. So then I wound up divorced 10 years later.
Oh, no.
Yeah, actually 13 years later. And then, I do 7 years of therapy, and I pay that. I do a lot of, stuff, right? And then I wind up in a loveless marriage, right? Has no passion, right?
Oh,
And that wasn't what I had thought I had signed up for. And I'm twice divorced in 4 more years. And after noticing that therapy had done me a lot of good, but it had not changed the particular pattern, that pattern was still running. Some part of me said, nobody should have this many years of therapy, this many, degrees, and get this sort of results. And at some point I said, if they can't crack the code, then I will. because, and so that's when I decided that this was my calling in life. And I had the requisite questions. So, when out of that pain, when I'm reading the research, I can tell when it's a really interesting academic footnote, and that's cool. It's an academic footnote. It's got some really wonderful left brain stuff, but it isn't going to do anything for your right brain and changing your deep patterns. So I have a nose for when it's research or when it's relevant.
Right.
Sometimes not all research is relevant, right? And sometimes not everything that's relevant is based on research.
Right.
That's an interesting thing too.
Wow. That's such an interesting story, and I can relate so much, so much. It's so similar to mine. I also grew up in a dysfunctional family, and I noticed at age 14 that the woman I was becoming wasn't the woman I wanted to become. And I started doing my own work, and then I went to university to be trained as a psychotherapist, and on all my 20s, I went through therapy 6 times, and it was all here. It was all in my head. I was an intellectual. I had all this knowledge, all this information, but my life sucked. And it wasn't until I went through my divorce that really, really I couldn't escape from myself anymore. I couldn't just, the pain was so great that I decided to do something about it. And that's also how I started, through healing my own self. So what was the first thing to somebody that, let's say one of the ladies that are watching you right now, and they are going through something similar in the sense that they failed in a relationship, or 2 or 3 or 4, and maybe they're not divorced, but they were long-term relationships, and they're realizing that there is something that there is a common thing that is happening all the time, and usually it's ourselves. What is the first step that you could recommend them that they could take to
You
shift?
just alluded to it in your own story. You said you had all this thought and knowledge and all this knowledge. Well, this part doesn't control your attachment patterns. Unfortunately, giving people think, oh, I have a name for it, a label for it. Wow, a label of $5 just might get you something at Starbucks. The problem with the therapeutic guild is it likes giving labels. And sometimes the labels aren't even helpful.
Right.
What's really running the boat, and this is what I talk about, is back here in your limbic system, deep down, back here, and really more in the middle of your brain, right? But this stuff, not so much, and the way I explain it to my clients is this part is running feelings. It also, can process 50 to 60 million bits of information a second.
Right.
Now, this part that says, hey, I'm a therapist, or, I've got a label, or it has a story and has beliefs and all that. Your prefrontal cortex, as powerful as it does abstract thought, it can do better. It can imagine better than, which is a good thing. This part only processes 138 bits per second. I've seen 68. So this part is way more powerful. And if you don't change the safety settings down here, this part could say, oh, I like it better. I'd like to have more. And this part is going, wait a minute. Did we survive better? We don't know about that. What's this whole thing about better?
Right.
Whatever the feelings are here, that's what's running the show. And what I argue in my book, and which I is kind of what I kind of preach to everybody, so to speak, is that attachment, what's running your patterns. Attachment is basically the science of how you learn to love and be loved. And it creates predictable patterns. Right. Those patterns are based on 4 feelings that we got from childhood. Now, whatever feelings, I should say. A secure child, a child who is born to love and be loved, so to speak, and has been raised 0 to 3 pretty well with a lot of attuned bids and a lot of love, they feel welcomed with joy. They feel worthy and nourished to reach out for they get to feel cherished and protected in a beautiful we. So they get to separate and belong, me and we, cherished and protected. And they're running a feeling of welcome with choice. I get to create my own experience. Nobody else is the standard. I get a right to assert. And then when around 3, the brain puts these whatever feelings together and says we have a right to love and be loved or not. Now, if you were given unwelcome or unworthy or uncherished are disempowered or unlovable, those two will run the show. And so these are what creating, because a worthy person won't take a taker. They won't put up with a taker. While as an unworthy person will, they'll settle for breadcrumbs. They'll be the bridesmaid, but never the bride, right? The disempowered person will put up with being dominated or lose themselves, where the empowered person does not. So it's feelings that we learned. And if we do not swap out the feelings, nothing can change. We can talk about it all we want, but this part will overrule. And that's why we have the patterns. I was safe with distance coming from a very disempowered, and I could not see where distance equals safe. Whatever that equation is, that's what's running the brain. It's all based on feelings. So if you're a man watching this, you're going to have to get in touch with those feelings. And if you're a woman watching this, you're going to have to work with them in a different way.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a completely learnable new way of doing things. It's the fact that our love maps were developed when we were at such a young age, and we may not even remember. We can look at the results we are getting, and we can kind of see what kind of attachment style we have. And then we can rewire our brain to be in a more secure way.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about attachment styles, there's 4 of them. I concentrate in my book on 3 of them, because they're 95% of people. There's anxious. I'm afraid one love's going to go away. You could be avoidant, right? Oh, I'm afraid of depending or being depended on. And by the way, those are descriptions for children. The anxious are called preoccupied as adults, because they're just preoccupied with past pain. They can't get over it. It's like it's all running today. And the avoidance, those avoidant babies grow up to be dismissive of their feelings and yours, and commitment and other things. And then there's the secure, that are wired to love and be loved. There's also something called disorganized, but that's a whole other category where you're both, and you're in a very chaotic way. You have an approach, you want it, you're anxious about losing it, and scared to death of having it. But that's only 5% of the population.
Oh, what a nightmare.
Well, and in a very clinical way, a lot of them point up to be have personality disorders, to be honest with you. And a lot of people hear, oh, I'm anxious and avoidant, but that's it's a more clinical thing. Just because you have sometimes you're anxious and sometimes you're avoidant doesn't mean you're disorganized, but that's a different thing. The thing is, though, these descriptions are merely descriptions and they don't predict who you are, because in actuality, it's a continuum. And we now know you can have pockets of all 3. You can have a dominant of anxious or avoidant with pockets of anxious and pockets of secure. And so when we say that we're anxious or avoidant, I think that is debilitating. I think that's not empowering. It is not about who you are. You are bigger.
Right. Oh, thank you for
your
saying
labels.
Yeah.
And so, what I want to say to people, the work is about finding the part of you that is safe, and that pocket of secure, and expanding what you already are. Now that takes work. Not just anybody can do it, but we want to expand who you are. So like Rumi said, what you're seeking is seeking you.
Yes.
If Rumi were an attachment, it says what you seek is already within you. We just got to make it safe.
Oh, love it. Love it. Love it. I love that. I love that. I really, really, like you, I have been in this industry for so long, and I have heard different narratives over time. And, a long time ago, it used to be all about changing, or there was something wrong with us. And I love how I can relate so much better to the fact that there is nothing wrong with us. There are a predominant pattern that is our crutch, and we can change it. We can use the other aspects of ourselves, because we have everything inside. It's just that ones are more developed than others. Like I am a runner, for example. My legs are really strong, Now my upper body is tiny. I'm super skinny on top. So, but that doesn't mean that if I go to the gym and start working out and lifting weights, that I won't develop those muscles. It's
Yes.
it's the same.
Well, like for instance, I think young Gary, let's take a story I've never told on a podcast or something. Pockets. With a borderline mother who is violent, I learned there was no feeling I cherished and protected, put it that way.
Yeah.
So most of me was about staying up in my room and not being downstairs. Avoidance. Avoidance was the best deal. If you go downstairs, you hit the wall. If you're upstairs playing by yourself, good deal. Your brain, by the way, no matter if you're anxious or always took the best deal available. But I remember thinking, do I want to be down there with mom or do I want to be up here? When I thought about that, I said, no, I'm going to be avoidant, right? So no cherished and protected, right? But at 7, we had a dog that got trapped under my uncle's back porch and was so cold one winter night and he was a big German Shepherd and he was growling at everybody. He was delusional, and the family said, well, he'll just die tonight. Like I said, no cherished and protected. Well, they weren't going to get my dog. So I snuck out against the orders. And I talked to that dog for an hour until it recognized me.
Wow.
And I got into there.
Okay.
And I got this 100-pound dog, and I'm 45 pounds. And 3 foot of snow, I put this dog on my back. And it takes me 25 minutes to just do probably 150 feet. And I'm taking that dog in and I get it in and it's almost dead. And mom says, well, if you're going to have to rub it. And I rubbed this dog for like 3 hours until it came back to life.
Oh my God.
Now there's cherished and protected. I was able to have a secure relationship with Rusty, right? Now, after that, by the way, he was my dog.
I bet he was.
Oh, the dog knew who I was after that, right? And before that, he didn't mind me at all. And after that, he did, right?
That's such a great story.
But notice that even there, and then and with friends, I can have a secure relationship.
Right.
And then now it's true that when my first marriage, I ran some avoidance. I also ran some secure. But the avoidance part had a lot to do with the divorce. I couldn't see it, So I couldn't see where I was still running that old program of distance equals the best deal. And that wasn't so good for her. So, these days I've just found those secure parts and expanded them and helped the other parts that are, to have better rights, as I call it,
Right.
So what we want to do is wherever that secure part shows up, and a lot of times it is with pets. People say, well, I'm avoiding, you're anxious, but you're not with your pet. If you have it there, we can expand it. And you may have it with friends. Wherever it is, we want to expand it so that it becomes your dominant. And in any situation, it might be just as well to be anxious or avoidant. That's called situational avoidance. If someone's being a real jerk to you, you should be avoidant.
Right. Thank you.
So we don't make any of them wrong. All of these labels, I mean, like anxious avoidant get really bad labels. Are they functional in relationships? No. Are they? But in and of themselves, they all at one time serve the very best deal possible.
Yes.
We just want to make sure your brain knows that's in the past, not now.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, because sometimes it's useful, those skills. If the guy is abusive, or in your case, if the woman is abusive, it's good to avoid it sometimes.
Well, I know that. I know I wouldn't be here talking to you had I exercised a right to assert. There was no such thing. And I can honestly tell you, when I did at 33, she stopped talking to me.
Oh, wow.
And it's because I put limits on what she could say to myself. And Papa Bear was different than 7-year-old Gary. And there again, there's the secure part of Gary showing up, even in the midst of his first marriage. So we don't want to make any part wrong. I know I've heard people tell me they've read the book like Attached. I was at a party once, talked to 20 people who had read the book Attached, and 15 of them told me virtually the same thing. When I read the book and I realized I was avoidant, especially avoidant or anxious, the one guy said, I stopped reading it because I felt like I had this thing called screwed, a sign over my head, an invisible sign. And you're not. Your
Yeah.
brain took the best deal available, and no matter what your painful patterns are, we can help your brain choose different patterns. But it's not just coaching. It's not coaching when I do it so long as they're running different feelings and it's still running a safety pattern. If we don't do the really deep work, and this is
Right.
not like
That's
how you get on Tinder or how many times do you have a scheduled dating different men. This is none of that. It's you do the deep attachment work first, then you go out and you apply some of these dating advice, which I've got friends who are dating coaches. They're very useful for navigating a Tinder or a Bumble.
they are useful. But I love what you said because people you need to know that just because the theory of attachment that this book attached, it's so easy to take. It's very trendy. It's very easy to get little pieces and put it on Instagram or read the book. It's a great book to read. It's very easy to read and understand, but it can cause more damage than good if you don't have the guidance of somebody that understands how the human mind works and the different aspects to it. So that's something that I see all the time with with mostly with social media. I am very big on social media, and I see these coaches popping up and they only talk about that book, and everything is about that, and I'm like, it's so much bigger than that. We can't just put somebody in a box. That causes a lot of damage. So it's really important to know that, if we are really having issues in relationships and we are, not being able to be in a loving, connected, intimate relationship with a man for a long time, it's good to look for help so we can
Yeah,
get to the depth of the problem. Sorry.
Attached usually gives that book gives, and it was a great book that it introduced the world. I highly respect it.
Yes.
But my book is meant to give you a way back home. It doesn't give you a way back home to secure. It gives you workarounds, but not really restoring. My book is about giving you the hope to know this is how you reclaim that secure attachment you were born to have. And some of their advice, well, like for instance, the book is known to have a bias against avoidance. Well, I can tell you from working with couples, avoidance will destroy a marriage. So will anxiousness. They're just, one is too hot, one is too cold. You can either freeze a plant or you can burn it up. Either way will kill the plant. It doesn't matter. In the end of now they had this bias toward the anxious, and they had this little piece of advice in there saying, if you're secure, avoid the avoidance. And if you're anxious, avoid the avoidance. But if you're secure and you meet an anxious person, they're going to be so excited when you can finally offer them secure. They'll become the most loyal of partners, and they will become secure when you offer them the unconditional love they're looking for. Well, some people said, there's some research says, well, that's an interesting idea. Is it true? Is it true that when the anxious pair up with the secure, that they come up to the pedestal secure? Well, they ran that test.
Oh, they did.
They did. Mm-hmm. They did. And they found out that 68% of the time, the anxious pull the secure off their pedestal, making them situationally anxious or avoidant. The fact is not why, because they're still running the same emotions and nobody changed their safety precautions, protocols. Without, just being in a better relationship, I want a better relationship. Being in a better relationship doesn't always change. It's about 2/3 of the time, your old stuff will run and it will affect the relationship. And then you wonder why you're in the same relationship.
Right.
Or the worse. And for the secure. So, we know that piece of advice doesn't work so well. There's research saying that was dead wrong. Might have been thoughtful at the time. It might have been in best of intentions.
Right.
But the real miracle is giving yourself back secure attachment, knowing that you have a right to feel welcomed and worthy and cherished and empowered. And your brain is trained relationally that you give them.
Right.
You give someone those feelings. Like I say in the book, the secure take no BS, and they give no BS. And the BS is they don't give unwelcomed, unworthy, uncherished, disempowered, and they don't take it either, because we have a right to feel empowered. We have a right to feel cherished. And when your brain can own that right, I call them rights, we could call them permission slips, and your brain is safe with that, then you put skills and coaching on that, you've got gold. But until you do the deep work,
Yes.
skills will not be safe. If you give someone the skills to have a better communicator, you give them nonviolent communication, whatever, but some part, like a little 4-year-old Gary learned that if I speak my truth, I could get hit, they're not going to do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're so right. You're so right. First, there is no way around to doing the deep work, because the rest is just going to be like, like in America, we said it's putting lipstick on a pig.
Yes, put lipstick on a pig. Exactly.
Where it's the same thing. It's just not going to stay. The skill, it's like having it. It's like being. I live in the desert. I live in Las Vegas, in the middle of the desert. It's like planting a tree in the middle of the desert. It's just not going to grow. That dirt doesn't have nourishment. It's not made to absorb water. It's made to just repel water. It's just not going to work. And then it's when it becomes manipulation and games and all that, and that ends up really, really bad. So first, it's work.
When I work with singles, because I also work with couples, most people, the singles guy, I want to find somebody. Well, but if we don't change their pattern, they won't keep them.
They won't keep
because the couples are simply singles that met each other and didn't do that work, and now they're in that thing. They're over and here we go again, right? The thing is if you want to find and keep love, you have to do the deep work now, and that means being relational. A lot of coaching for singles. Who do I want? Long list. Well, who do I have to be for that person to feel love? Because everybody wants to feel love. Am I truly relational? Am all my ways of handling conflicts empowering them or just empowering to me? And a lot of times we've learned ways of dealing with conflict resolution that, like therapist Terry Real says, it has the underlying feeling, I was once weak, now I'm strong, go screw yourself. That's not going to work in a relationship, because it's how do we say things in a way that empowers them to feel good about it and give us what we want while we are still co-creating, giving them what they need. Now that's a we. Now you'll notice there's this thing back here, and the one thing that says we, I have that in the background because if you're single, are you open to a real we? And you're looking for signs of the we in you and in the other person. If you're not creating a true we and it's not there, so in dating advice, track the 4 feelings. Track the feelings, not what happened, but how am I feeling in this relationship? Am I feeling welcomed, worthy, cherished, and empowered? Am I giving it? Am I giving it? And then look for signs of the we. Now, am I giving it? I saw on Instagram, there was a post where the guy said, hey, it was a hot day, we're on our first date, would you like to get some ice cream? Now he didn't say anything else, and she goes, you know what, I'm really worthy of more than ice cream. I don't think you're the right guy. Now that's about now in my opinion, she gave him a feeling of real disempowerment. I'm so worthy I can make you feel unworthy.
Wow.
Now, the guy that could really make her feel worthy isn't going to put up with that. And then she's going to wonder why she's stuck with avoidance or the anxious. Oh, yeah, let me fix that. Right. But I just noticed in that post, what feeling? And then, and I thought, she got it all wrong. There was no welcome. There was no worthy. And that's how you start off. And then you find out whether you've got a decent relationship. I felt like she flunked the front door entrance really well. Now I've seen guys, I've had single women show me texts from guys, and I'm going, from Bumble or wherever, and you're thinking, what world did these people come from? Did
Yeah.
did they ever meet a female with less than 4 legs? You think some things, and they don't do very well with welcomed and worthy. And then we wonder why there's such avoidance of that first date, because a lot of people in the dating world don't know how to give the first 2 feelings, welcomed and worthy. Cherished will come later. You got to have a track record for that, right? You got to get to know somebody. Empowerment, that comes a little later, but in the front door of
Yeah.
dating, welcomed and worthy.
I know.
And if you're not good at giving and
Yeah.
receiving, noticing it, dating becomes much more problematic.
Yeah. It's the very basis, it's a foundation. It's a foundation. Without that foundation of welcoming and, I call it appreciation also. If you cannot have that, and I think it all goes back to us. I believe in my experience and in my own personal experience and working with so many people in all these years, when somebody answers like that, it's back to them. They probably don't feel worthy, because the more secure, the more confident, the more loving, the more I know who I am, and whatever he does is not going to change who I am, the more welcoming people are, the more loving people are. I remember when I met my now husband. I have been married for a long time, and I love him. He's amazing. But, he, at some point, he did something that I thought it was hilarious, and I was just going along with. We were going on dates, and he was paying for everything, and I never offered to pay ever. He was paying for everything, and that was something that, to me, it had to be like that. I wanted a man like that. But that didn't mean that I wasn't going to pay things in the future, but I wanted to see that part. And I know you can agree or not, but anyway, that's what I was doing 15 years ago. So one day he picks me up and say, let's go to Costco. And I'm like, okay, whatever, let's go to Costco. And he's like, oh, try that sample. And I can eat whatever. I am like a Pac-Man. Literally, I love food, and I don't think there is one thing I won't eat. So I'm like, tuk, tuk, tuk. And then he looks at me when we were done, and he said, okay, that was lunch. And I was like, okay, whatever, I'm good. And then he relaxed. And he's like, oh, okay, let's go to a restaurant to have dessert now. He was really testing me. He was testing me if I was with him because I wanted to be with him. I really didn't care about where he was taking me. It wasn't about that. It was about getting to know him. He was somebody that I have never met before. He was super special. He made me laugh. He was a man that was super secure. He didn't care about what other people thought about him, but not in a crazy way. Okay. So I was really, really enjoying getting to know him. And I didn't care if we went to the Wynn Resort or if we went to Costco it wouldn't make a difference to me. And when he noticed that, he was like, okay, more relaxed, and he just started to be more relaxed in that area. But I think
what you're pointing out is, if a woman can feel like, I'm only attractive if I'm only loved if I'm attractive. The opposite side of it, on the male side, is I'm only loved if I have money.
yes,
And every woman has been with them and had dates where they know they were objectified sexually, right? And there's few men that on the other side, they haven't been objectified financially, right? Love doesn't live in either of those 2 places. And and what he was testing for, am I loved? Am I loved for who I am? Am I worthy, or is my wallet worthy? Now there's a difference, right?
Right. I love that. I'm like, bring it, dude, whatever. I know who I am. I don't.
And he was looking to see if I'm reading him rightly, do I have a life partner here, or do I have? Because a
Right.
life partner gets down into things like money. These things do exist. You have to have mutual contribution, you have to have a plan, you have to have
Right.
similar values. These things all, and because what if the three things that you see most in couples when I work with: sex, money, and communication. Those
Right.
are your three things, and it's usually communication about the first two. As well as
And what I see is that if they are there, let's say if sex is there and it's good, it's like 10% of the relationship. It's like, okay, it's there. But if it's not there, it becomes 80%, 90%. It's everything. So that's a big difference. That if it's there, it's good. But if it's not there, that's when it becomes a problem. And I agree with you. Communication is absolutely everything. And I cannot understand why some people don't want to even learn how to communicate in a good way. The other day I was running with this woman, and I hope she doesn't watch this, and she was telling me how she just talks to her children and husband in whichever way she wants. And she knows, super smart woman. This is a super smart woman. She knows that she's damaging. She's not creating relatedness. She knows she's breaking the relationships. And she literally told me her words, I don't care. I just want things done my way. And they are kind of
grandiosity. It's in a couple, they're one up and walled off. That doesn't work. Whereas everybody else gets to be boundaryless and walled off, or maybe just boundaryless. But they're one down, and they're either boundaryless, whining, complaining a lot, or they're walled off. I guess I have to take this. This is where the we comes in. The we is both. When you talked about sex is 10%, you're right. I think it's the canary in mine shop. So when singles are looking, is passion and part of that? Yes. But now, the reason why I ask couples is because it is a symptom of the marital friendship. 70% of people say that what's most important to them, and this is both men and women, no distinction, is it's the quality of the marital friendship. So I know that if the sex life isn't there, there's something wrong with the marital friendship. So, as a single, a lot of times you can get swept up in those first few months where all that gets put in play. But underneath it, are you building the foundation of a really strong marital friendship? And for me, the friendship is the we, and those, are you able to give and the four feelings and receive them? Some people can't receive. And are you good at repairs? Can you offer and accept? That's a good marital friendship. When that's there, the passion is usually there. When the passion isn't there, then there's a problem with the marital friendship. And if you reverse engineer that for singles, you got to be paying attention to the fact that we've got to be putting in a quality marital friendship. Is there intimacy, vulnerability? Can my guy listen to feelings? Can he share his own? And by the way, if a man is listening to this saying that I feel that, or I feel like, anything after the like and that is not a feeling. And it's not, I feel that I wasn't really treated well. No, I felt unworthy. I felt angry. I felt sad. That's a feeling. Don't give me any of this feel that or feel like crap. That's just an end to run, right? But if there's that, and because the marital friendship is knowing where each other is. And one of the things I have learned over the years is, there used to be a time when I really didn't want to do anything with feelings a long time ago. Pernicious little things.
Such a stereotype you were. Oh my God.
And these days I run with feelings with the best of them. And the one thing I've learned working with, especially with couples, is that women use emotional radar to geolocate in the relation. They send out that and emotional signals, and when it comes back, they know where they're at. So they ask the husband, "Where are you? What happened?" "Well, I had a certain PowerPoint meeting that went bad." "Well, how do you feel?" "Well, I felt that Bob screwed up." "Well, how do you feel?" "Well, I felt that could really jeopardize." She's not getting anything back. But if he says, "Well, I felt angry because I felt betrayed by Bob. Fine, now we got to feel. I felt afraid because we could lose all of our funding. Oh, that's a very different location.
Right.
What men don't get and what the quality of the friendship needs is emotional echolocation.
Right.
It needs both partners to tell and to respond where each other at. It's like women send out signals, especially, and men should too, by the way. Okay, this shouldn't be just one side. We both got feelings. But if, say, SFO, which is near me, they send out radar, and when the radar comes back, they know where flight Delta 848 is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're happy. But if they turn off their transponders and don't respond back, you've got some anxious or angry air traffic controllers because they don't know how to land the plane.
Right.
So if in attachment and relationships and relationality and that marital friendship is all about knowing how to land the emotional aircraft that's coming into the aircraft called this airport called this relationship. And at any one given moment, there's all sorts of feelings coming into the relationship, and you are the air traffic controller. So you have to be able to ping each other emotionally in a secure way so it feels safe to land on the tarmac and feel loved.
Yeah.
Now, if you can't offer that or you're not getting it, that needs to be put into the marital friendship. And if you're a man, you need to pay attention to her feelings, let her know you've got them, and you need to give some back, because everything about attachment, if the early is all about for feelings, what do you think the later attachment's all about? It's about tracking emotions. So if you're single, you're looking at how well do we as air traffic controllers land these emotional planes.
Right. And we get it so wrong. Until we do this kind of work, we think it's all about doing. We have to be doing and having, and we have to just for women mostly, is having a killer body, great hair, just doing, and that doesn't create long-term relationships. That creates very short-term relationships for sure, because men are very visual, and who doesn't want to date a hot mama? But if she's not able to connect emotionally with the guy, there is no way she's going to get to his heart. She's going to get to his mind. And men don't stay in relationships because it makes sense to them. They stay in a relationship because the way they feel. It's all about feelings.
It is all about feelings. And when you talk about, it's all about doing and coaching. That's
Right.
At a moment, that's fixing. How many of us like being fixed? Not many of us, right?
Yeah.
When I tell men, particularly the husbands, it's almost ubiquitous, okay, so I know you're trying to fix it, but did you feel into it? So it takes a while, but it's like, so this is the plan. Feel first, feel second, feel third, feel fourth, feel fifth, and maybe 6 or 7 you can fix. But if you feel, it's not just feel first, fix. It's feel. Then if they need a solution,
And maybe I am willing to take a risk and say that after we feel for so long, for so many steps, we may not even need to fix him, because we will understand, and we will seeking to understand. We are so into, he doesn't understand me. It's all about, and we are not here to be understood. I think we are here to understand, because, and when we understand, compassion comes, love comes, the feeling of trying to connect comes. I don't know. I think that's where the beauty is.
Well, what the biggest thing I was surprised when I reclaimed secure was that the feeling is the fix. That is the fix.
Great. I got it right now.
You got it. Feeling is the fix. And, when you think about it, what is the purpose of love and relationship? In a world of 8 billion people, how many of us are truly known? How many people really track us, are witnesses to our life? So if you're not being known, if it's not safe to be known, And being known is about our feelings. That's all we run. And man, you've got them on the right side, of your brain, and all attachment is running from the right side of your brain where feelings are. It's and when you talk about experience, it's not a thought. Experience is mostly feelings, some thoughts that tell you how to feel or are as a result of how you feel. So if you want to, it's about being known. It's about someone's committing to see all the chapters of your life, and you're important enough to be known. In a real good relationship, you feel known.
Yeah.
Now, none of us will ever know everything about what I'm still learning things about my beloved every once in a while. And we also know that we also change. Harvard said that about every 12, 15 years, people's identities change when they track people over from 15 to 75 and have them every 10 years fill out a report of who they are. When they're 75, they don't even recognize what they said about themselves at 15. And it reminds me of when this thing is always dynamic. Who you sign up to, if you're single, to marry, they're not always going to be that person. And this is why you continually got to have these skills and these really good air traffic controllers, or you grow apart. Now, I was lucky enough in one of my marriage and family relationship courses, the professor brought in 3 couples so we could actually see what real couples. One was a couple that had just gotten married that had been on campus the year before, and I remember thinking, oh my God, she married?
Why?
And then there was this old couple that was like 48,
Oh my goodness.
and then because I'm 21, right? And then there's that's 93, 88, and they've been married 63 years. They were late bloomers to marriage, when they got married. I noticed that immediately. That wasn't the case. But somebody asked him, a very disrespectful football player, pointing to direction because he was over there. I remember where he was in the class. And he says, what's it like being married to the same woman for 63 years? And this old chap picks up a little bit of his contempt and says, well, young man, if you're lucky enough to be married to the same woman, so it was touche, right? And then he said the most extraordinary thing that I have found to be absolutely true. This wise old farmer, no attachment expert, no longitudinal study at Harvard. He knew about this well before this thing was even complete. He says, if you think you're married to the same woman, the same man, you're crazy. He says, I've been married to 5 different women. And he named off and described the 5 different women. And I have never seen a woman glow with such love, nodding, and approval. And he said, every 10, 12, 13 years, my marriage had to change because she changed. He says, so I've been in 5 marriages in 63 years with 5 different wives, so to speak. And if you think you're married to the same one, he says, you got to grow together. He says, no, if you think you're marrying, is going to stay that way, he says, I got another thing for you. Love is about growing with each other. Now, that's why we need the intimacy. That's why we need to share the feelings. And if that's not there, and you think, well, it's good now, I can put up with it. Man, given the way wear and tear on life is, that's not setting your relationship up as a single for lasting. This is about what's the quality of the relationality, the skills. Do we have the secure attachment? I know I'm speaking at a deeper level, but then that's because when I deal with singles, I've also dealt with people who were once single and were now are couples, and nobody addressed it back then. And now we're learning at year 15. Right. Yes.
So, well, I can talk with you forever, but I know time is kind of, but I have a question, but I don't know if you want to answer it or not, because I know you're a busy man, and I am not sure if it's a positive question. So let's see. Why do you think that farmer with his wife had they made it work? And there are so many people that can't make it work. What do you think how do you think they are different? Are they different? Have you ever thought about that?
Oh, that guy answered it, and it has haunted me, their answer.
Okay.
When you think of the famed 50% divorce rate,
Yes.
somebody, I don't remember exactly what the question, but she answered this question. She goes, somebody asked her, oh, I remember it was it, what do you think about the future of love or something? And she goes, I got to tell you something. She goes, we had a so-so marriage that sometimes I worried about and wondered about for the first 20 years. She goes, there weren't any books like you're reading on how to be married and how to love each other, not when we got married. And she goes, we had to figure this stuff out all by ourselves. And me, she goes, and I looked at your textbooks and I wish I could have had one of those. Right. And we're way beyond that now. We're way beyond that. And she goes, my greatest fear is that your generation, that was my generation, expects so much. And because you expect so much, you're going to be so disappointed you never get to really having it. She goes, we expected not anywhere near as much, and we have far more. She says, my greatest fear is you will expect more and get far less. And to be honest, it wouldn't be a complete answer, but there was truth to what this 88-year-old woman saw that many years ago.
Yeah.
We know from that the more people expect, the more dissatisfied they can be in a relationship. And the more choice. Barry Schwartz wrote a book called The Choice. The more choices you have, the more dissatisfied.
That is the biggest problem we have now, is the choice. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, I chose this. I dated 16. Maybe there's somebody out there. Maybe there's a doctor or a nurse, or a doctor, or maybe, and men do the same. I mean, we have raised the expectations over the years and given and attachment, not so much, and skills, not so much. Right. And this is how you create jadedness, hopelessness, and divorces, and continual swiping left.
Right.
There's got to be more emphasis on secure attachment and real love and kindness and understanding. And with that, then you look at, our values aligned? Can we create a we? Because I don't think just any two secure people can necessarily align in a marriage, right? But I do think that we have added expectations, and that's all apps did. Swipe left, man. Somewhere out there, there's a the doctor that does Pilates and everything else, right? And I've seen the women who have found these men, and they've come in and then 5 weeks later, and this is real instance, dated a guy, 6'3", doctor, Armani suits, and 5 weeks later says, yeah, he likes Pilates, he likes checking out the women, not so welcome, not so cherished. I mean, not so worthy. So it's, giving you the ability, the track record to trust. And if I'm talking to singles, notice the feelings, trust your guts. Sometimes you can be prone to feeling unworthy and you might see it where it's not. I'll give you that. But most I track the feelings you're giving and taking. Is there a strong friendship that can repair and track each other in that emotional airport? If you've got that, that's what you're looking for. And if you can't find that in 4, 5, 6, 7 dates, if that's not showing up in a small way, move on. Let them learn their lessons elsewhere, or learn the ones you need to learn. That's my best advice for singles.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I know you have a present for our ladies here. If you would you like to share a little bit? I'm going to place the link under the video.
Sure. The back of the book says, everyone deserves a love that lasts. So I have a Dr. Gary's Guide for Lasting Love. And in the book, I write about, right to create your own experience. And guess what? There are 3 versions of this. There's one for singles who are not dating and they're afraid to get back into the dating realm. There's one set of it's a little videos that I've prepared that help you go from that track record of always being Mr. or Ms. Wrong, that they can't find the one. How do you find the one? And then there's one for couples, or if you're in a single that's in a more relational coupled relationship. So there's three versions of how you move from where you are, and where you are is just where you're safe. We respect that part of your brain, but then how do we change it? So it's a guide for moving from where you are to lasting love, not just finding, but keeping. So it's called Dr. Gary's Guide for Lasting Love. It's some pretty cool videos, and you get to choose the one that's right for you.
Wow, what a wonderful gift. You ladies, make sure you go and grab it. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Gary.
Thank you, Natalia.